So there's three main things, well, two mainly that we used for this project, being on Web Labs. The plan and the perspective view. In the plan view, you really just so there's three main things, well, two mainly that we used for this project, being on Web Labs. The plan and the perspective view. In the plan view, you really so there's three main things, well, two mainly that we used for this project, being on Web Labs. The plan and the perspective view. In the plan view, you really just get the overlook and pretty much it's a two-dimensional view of the site, property, and the landscape itself. But on the bottom left of Dynascapes, you'll have the plan, perspective, and walkthrough tabs. If you go to perspective, it's more of a three-dimensional view, as you can see in the two photos on the right. One I have at the front and one I have at the back. I think that's really useful and it's really cool because you can really scroll through and do whatever you really need to and get a better view of the property through there. We didn't get to use the walkthrough tab just because we're on Web Labs, which is pretty much just logging in onto a Penn State desktop through my laptop at home. So I don't have the same processor or horsepower of those computers in order to do so. But basically, the walkthrough tab grants you that ability to just, lack of a better term, walk through your landscape. And that's what I really like about Landscape Architect, because if you're ever showing a site to a client and they wanted to get a better view on their site, that tool would definitely be useful. And we've had some mentors come into our class and give us better views on how to use walkthrough and how useful it is and how they manage to use it with clients. Landscape Architect is extremely useful in the creativity aspect as to where you can really do whatever you want in this. Here I have just what's in the accessories tab, just for the furniture, and that's not even half of it. As you can see on the left side, you can really go down to anything you really want. There's more furniture. You can add in cars, lamps, tables, chairs, pergolas. We had to add in a pergola in, wasn't too hard. We just had to use a couple more tools on the side because it was a custom edition. Using these library of tools is extremely useful because you're not really stuck into just a couple of things, but it helps you put your design into your own perspective and creativity in your custom design. Object specific tools. These are pretty much what you use in order to create your landscape. Now, the three pictures I have here are just only the three we mainly use for this landscape, but you can see there's a lot more you can do using the terrain or the road feature, even adding in water features or a swimming pool once you really want to do that. But in the building tool, you can see it's pretty much all you can imagine, using the house, door, windows, or adding in a fence, and the decking patio tools are extremely useful. In the landscape tool, it's pretty obvious as what you're using. Using the region tool, which I'll get into in a little bit, the plants, and the accessories. And the plan detail is just pretty much what we used after we had the landscape done, like using the text and labeling. And once we developed our plant list and the plant labels as well. Here I have an example of using the patio tool. Using the patio tool is almost like using a polyline tool in Dynascape or AutoCAD. Now, when using this, it's come to that two quick step method where you left click and keep going until you have your base of what you want to add, and then you want to finish it up with a right click, and then as you can see, it'll fill in with a graphic. And just like that library of objects, you can really change the material whatever you want, as you'll see in the next slide. All right, here's what I was talking about changing the material for the patio. Obviously, you can see I'm in the patio section, and it's just all flagstone or just different textures for a set patio. But if you want to change it to something else, don't get me wrong, you can totally do that. Making it a wooden patio with deck fencing or even marble or concrete if you really wanted to. Landscape architect has a lot of options, and it definitely fits the master's creativity as to how you want to build your landscape and bring everything together for a certain client when the specificities match their budget, or can really do whatever you want using landscape architect, because I really don't think there's a lot of limits using this. A lot of the tools in landscape architect are the same, like the region tool, the patio tool, even the house tool. Using the house tool, as you can see on the left in the plan view, it's almost like there's four different buildings, and that's where we started off. We started off putting in the garage, then the main house, and the front overhang for the front door, and then on the bottom you'll see the small hangout area. The house is just as customizable as everything else in landscape architect. On you, if you see on the right picture, you'll see you can have the boards changed, even the roof tiles, and adding in the windows wasn't hard at all. Once you add in the windows for the first floor, it's just as easy doing on the second floor. Once you have the height of the house and you measure down from the first window on the first floor to the ground, you want to do that for the second floor, and you just adjust the height on the windows and they're able to get up to the second floor, and you can do it for the whole house around. Getting into the plant tools and plant list is probably one of the biggest parts of using landscape architect, because what's a landscape without plants or trees? Getting into this, it's extremely extent in having as much plants as they do. Getting into the trees, perennials, annuals, water plants, and even using the plant list as well. It was all extremely useful. And there's just so much variety, and it really helped in my creativity in building this landscape. Adding in the plant list wasn't as hard as you might think, like it was for Dynascapes. Well, I wouldn't say it was hard, but it was more of a process. Going into Landscape Architect and using the plant list tool, you just go into the plant detail, click the plant list button, and boom, it just pops up right there, and you insert it into your plan view, which was really useful and honestly really cool. It saved a lot of time. Real-time landscape photo is almost like using the walkthrough tab, but just taking a couple snapshots. In the top left, I give you guys an example as to what it looks like to use the tool on your landscape in the perspective view. I think it's easier to use in the perspective view because then you actually get just a very 3D model of what you're taking a picture of, or the walkthrough. As you can see in the bottom right, which is listed in my plan view, those are the pictures we used to put in. You could change the angle, height, and pretty much just capture the image you really want to use. It's definitely more useful in the walkthrough option, but as I said later, due to web labs, we can't really use those options. Using it in the walkthrough tab, it's literally like you're walking through your landscape, and using the photos, you can change the angle as you're walking through, almost like you're walking down the pathway, turning your head, looking at the side of the house, or looking over to the plant beds. In conclusion, I would definitely say, without a doubt in my mind, that Landscape Architect is one of the coolest, most useful software systems we've used so far in class in order to render a landscape online. Just because of how much you can really do with it. And the 3D modeling was probably my favorite part. I thought it would be really hard, but it's not. And I haven't even gotten a chance to try it in AutoCAD. But after using Landscape Architect, I don't really think anything can top this, just because of how much accuracy you get with it. Talking more about the walkthrough tab, you can change the environment settings to night. It adds the luminosity of any lights you have on your landscape, which is really cool. Our professor showed us how to use that, and I wish we got into more using it for this landscape in particular, only because when we have our mentors come into class and they show us what they do with it using it with their clients, it's almost like I'm an ant in an ant farm, because there's so much you can do with this stuff, and it just takes time and a lot of patience, of course. But really, you just need to mess around with it, and you can do so much with it, and it's really cool. Thanks for watching my video. I hope I gave you guys a nice explanation on my project here, and definitely representing landscape architect. Have a nice day. Thank you.